If the enemy has a stick or wand, you can actually use this against them to figure out if they have vision of you. Whenever a visible enemy within 1200 range uses an ability, you gain a stick charge. This means if the enemy gains a charge when you use an ability from behind trees in a spot where they normally shouldn't have vision of you, it's a dead giveaway that they do. One easy spot to check for an enemy ward like this is during the laning phase on this radiant cliff. But you can do this anywhere, even if you're farming a neutral camp and an enemy is walking by. Use a spell on a neutral creep and pay attention to if they gain a stick or wand charge. Gaining a charge even works when a neutral creep uses an ability. If you have a stick or wand of your own, you can make use of the persistent range indicator option to ensure the enemy is within 1200 range before using your spell to check. This is just one of many unique ways you can have more success dewarding your enemies. Let's look at another one. This video idea came from someone in the comments of my last video. If you have an idea for a video, be sure to let me know. If enemy creeps aggro or attack you when they shouldn't, it indicates that the enemy has vision of you. The easiest way to check this is if they follow you when moving upstairs. You can notice this easily in the mid lane. If they don't have vision of you, they'll stop at the top of the stairs and start running back to their lane. In mid, melee creeps won't start attacking you until they get to the top of the stairs, meaning that's when they finally gain vision of you. The same goes for range creeps starting to attack from the low ground. This tip also applies to enemy heroes attacking you. Pay close attention. Sometimes an enemy hero will attack you when they normally shouldn't have vision of you, revealing that they have vision in that area. You can then check nearby cliffs or common ward spots to find their wards. These tips focus on small, often overlooked details in the game that can easily reveal enemy vision, usually from a ward. Later, we'll discuss more general gameplay tips to help you deduce where the enemy warded when it's not so obvious. Now let's keep going on with more tips. If you find an enemy ward, you can click on it to see how long it's been alive. Make it a habit to do this. If the ward was just placed, you're probably in danger. If it was placed semi-recently, the enemy is probably in the area. If it's about to expire, it might be safe to assume the enemy placed another ward in the area in preparation for this one dying. If an enemy spell hits you when it shouldn't, that can also reveal enemy vision. Examples include Nature's Prophet's ultimate and Wraith King's skeletons from his Bone Guard facet. If you know any other similar spells, be sure to let all of us know in the comments. These spells will only damage units if they have vision of them. So if you get smacked by Wrath of Nature while walking through your jungle, the enemy has vision of you. You can also sometimes tell if the enemy has vision in an area if you're against a Nature's Prophet and you notice some of your camps are damaged but not fully dead. This is probably because his ult ran through and damaged them, as players usually don't leave neutral camps halfway dead. If you find this in your game, check cliffs and common ward spots in the surrounding area that have vision of the damaged camp. If you want to learn some popular ward spots the pros are using right now, check out this other video of mine. If you 360 no-scope your sentry, then click the subscribe button, you'll have full vision of the enemies, including all of their observer wards. If you're already subscribed, you'll need to click the like button instead. If you click both, oh man, you don't even want to know what happens. Try it out yourself. Now this next tip is pretty commonly known, but the following one might not be as familiar. When you want to check a cliff for a ward, it's often better to place your sentry on the low ground rather than right on the cliff. This way it covers a lot more of the surrounding area and can reach multiple common ward spots. Now that being said, it is still valuable to place your sentry on the cliff if you want to quickly check it, for example at the start of a teamfight. This is great to do when searching for a ward against a Nature's Prophet like we mentioned earlier. This next tip is especially useful in the early game. If you did the trick using the enemy's stick to check if they have vision of you and you find that they do, but you're not sure the ward is on the cliff, try this. Place your sentry on the low ground and walk right up next to the cliff. Your hero provides a small amount of vision right around them, allowing you to see a bit of the top of the cliff. Do a lap around the cliff to check for the ward. It can be tricky to click and attack the ward as it's usually only visible for a brief moment. A-click on the ground to automatically attack it once it comes into vision. I find this most helpful before level 4, which is when your courier learns to fly. While useful at any point in the game, some cliffs are harder to check all the way around. Now let's move on to more strategic tips that'll help your dewarding game when you need to deduce their location based on limited information. Dewarding is a skill that relies on understanding the game and player behavior. It's a big mind game, especially in higher ranked pubs. I've played over 18,000 hours of Dota, so I've picked up on a lot of common warding habits players tend to have. To save you 750 days of playing and learning these things for yourself, I'll point out some of the most important things to watch out for. First, watch how enemy heroes move. This is a lot more noticeable at lower ranks, but still applies in immortal games, though it's a lot more subtle. If you see an enemy support walk up to a cliff, pause, then walk away, what do you think they just did? Probably warded, right? Why else would someone do this, unless they're trying to trick you? This is a common movement lots of players have. I remember when I was really trying to get better at warding and dewarding, I started to recognize this simple movement so well that I could just see the enemy moving on my minimap and I'd almost be certain that I knew where and when they warded. Next, get into the habit of checking enemy inventories. If you know the enemy has 2 wards as they enter your jungle, then 0 as they leave, you know they probably have 2 new wards in your jungle. You'll only know this because you checked their inventory. Even when you can't see them place the ward, doing things like this can help you make great educated guesses. Also, did you know you can click the enemy hero's portraits at the top of the screen to check their last known inventory? This helps to know whether an enemy placed their ward or not. A tip that can sometimes help know where an enemy warded is checking how long they were out of vision, indicating how far they went into your jungle. For example, if an enemy enters your triangle with 1 observer ward and quickly leaves without it, they likely placed it near the entrance. If they stay longer before leaving without the ward, they might have placed it deeper. However, warding is a mind game. Players might linger to trick you into thinking they placed a deep ward. This is something I do and find successful. The best time to ward is when you're moving through the enemy side of the map with your team, allowing for deeper wards in otherwise hard to reach areas. Keep this in mind when enemies make similar moves on your side. If the enemy takes your bottom tier 2 tower, then moves to take your mid tier 1 tower, it's a prime time for them to place deep wards in your jungle. Check for these wards when it's safe to keep your jungle secure. And if you're keeping tabs on their items, you should understand whether your jungle is warded or not. You don't have to deward every enemy observer ward, even if you know where it is. Let's look at the example we just went over. Let's say your team is focused on contesting Roche top, and you see an enemy ward deep in your jungle. It's not a priority right now. Your team needs you at the Roche fight. Don't waste time dewarding it if there are more pressing matters on the map. Sometimes it's better to leave a ward and take it out later when it's more convenient. Don't die for a deward, most of the time. I'll explain when it might be acceptable in a bit. When dewarding, you might need teammates to protect you, especially if you know it's warded. Don't risk running out solo if enemies are nearby. They'll just blow you up once you come into vision. Wait for your team to help or until the enemies move to another part of the map. Now, when is it acceptable to die for a deward? At the start of a teamfight. Vision is crucial, especially during teamfights. Having the upper hand in vision can dictate the outcome. If you want to take a fight near a cliff, running up to ward and deward quickly before the fight can be beneficial as long as your team is nearby to control the area. Even if you die, having vision puts your team in a great position. It's even better if you have buyback to rejoin the fight quickly. Don't be that noob that runs into no vision to check for a ward only to get blown up instantly by the enemy team. You may have noticed that sometimes players don't kill enemy sentry wards. There are a couple of reasons for this. If you find an enemy sentry on a cliff, it can be good to place your observer right on the cliff where the enemy sentry is. As long as the sentry wasn't placed in the last 12 seconds, when it still provides vision, seeing their sentry still there might make them think that the spot is dewarded and safe. It can be riskier to do this if the enemy has a really easy way to check cliffs, like with Veno wards. Another reason to not kill the enemy sentry is to avoid giving away information. If you kill their sentry, they'll see you attacking it, revealing your position and item. This can be especially bad if you're near an ally, as the enemy will gain vision of both of you. If you deward, make sure the enemy sees as little as possible. And a small tip, it can be good to run in a direction that you don't actually plan on going after dewarding. This can fake out the enemy and make them think you're moving into a different part of the map. If you guys have any dewarding tips that weren't covered here, be sure to let all of us know in the comments so we can all become better players. If you like this video, consider subscribing for more content like this. Check out my Patreon if you want to support me further or work one-on-one with me to improve your gameplay. I offer coaching there at different tiers and you can watch and learn from all previous coaching sessions. Thank you so much to the Titan Forge, Yuri, Mark, Aaron, Ole, and Jay for supporting me there. There's some content for free members as well, so go join even if you don't want to pay anything. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope you learned something new with me.